Okay. Well, we gonna fix you first. Okay. Y'all, listen. Technology is one of those things that is truly, truly, truly unpredictable. But nonetheless, welcome to Believe in the Journey podcast, where I'm your host, Triveda Harris. My guest tonight is Miss Denicia Hilton Harper, and we're basically going to be talking about loving your authentic self. And she is a holistic doctor of well-being consultant, doctor of oriental medicine, and we're just going to be talking about that if she's able to get back on. If not, we just going to deal with life throwing us these type of curveballs, because life is gonna throw some curveballs at you, and how you handle that is what is going to dictate how you move on to the next step. So with that being said, before we do anything else, we're going to go to God in prayer. So, dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together as you do each and every time I am in front of you. Let the words of my mouth fall upon the ears that need to hear. Let us be a vessel that you use to bring people closer to you. We walk every day with a purpose in which we have been created. So everything that we say and everything that we do, we hope that it magnifies and glorifies your name, and everything that is significant and important to you for the purpose of the goodness that you have brought to each and every one of us, because without you we are nothing, and with you we are everything that we were destined to be. So I thank you in your precious and holy name, Jesus, I pray. Amen. Now, like I said, life is going to throw you some curveballs. And what you do in those situations is that you figure out how you can move to the next step, how you can move forward. Right now, we're being thrown a curveball because the last time we had Miss Denisa on, we had the same issue. We had the technical difficulties. So it's just one of those things. Maybe it's not her time to be on the show. I'm not sure. But ultimately, whatever she has to say is very, very important, and we need to hear it, because the enemy would not be fighting us so hard if it was not important for what she needed to say and how we need to love our authentic self. And y'all, excuse me, it's these little fruit flies around here. I got some bananas in here, and they are just trying to take over. But anyway, um, life has thrown me a few curveballs, and one of the main ones that I can think of where life threw me a huge curveball was when I had my stroke, because I was really and truly unprepared for that. I was a 30-year-old mom going through separation, going through a divorce, helping out my sister and my mom, and trying to raise three children, 13, 10, and 7 at the time. So I was not prepared to have a stroke. I was not prepared to actually have my life turned upside down. So it was a moment of learning how to maneuver after life had thrown me in a whirlwind of something I had not prepared for. Finance wise, I was prepared. But as far as physical and mental, I never imagined myself having a stroke at the age of 30. And I don't think anybody else would ever think that something like that would happen. But I also realized that was a gift and a curse for me, in a situation of um, learning how to maneuver with life. And so you're going to have to go through life and understand that there's going to be some detours, there's going to be some curveballs, there's going to be some unexpected things that you're going to encounter along your journey in this life. And what you do in those moments, you can either fold, you can either deal with the, I guess you could say, the fallout of asking God, why did this happen to me? Why did He choose to put you in that type of situation? But instead of doing that, that is an opportunity for you to shift the perspective on what it is that you're supposed to be learning in that moment. Because as you know, God will never put more on you than He's already equipped you with. Not that He gives His toughest battles to His toughest soldiers. That little cliche I don't necessarily live by, because God already equipped us with everything that we need in this life. It's up to us to dig deep when we're faced with certain adversities to figure out how we're supposed to learn from this and move on to the next step that is fulfilling the purpose that we've been created. So, like right now, it's like I don't know if my guest is gonna make it back. And I could have been like, well, she ain't here. Let's just end the show. But I was prepared for this moment. Um, Hiding in the background is usually my best thing that I tend to do, but I can't hide no more. God's like, look, get your little butt on out there in the front. That's the only place we're gonna see you anyway is in the front because you're too short to be in the back. So you got to be out front and center and speak on the things that I give you. And so life is truly unexpected. It is one of those things that you've been gifted, and what you do in this life is going to either be a blessing to someone, and also there's an opportunity for you to be the villain to someone as well. It all depends on how you look at the experience that God has brought you through. There's going to be circumstances, there's going to be situations to where you're going to question what it is that you're going through. Why am I in this moment? What is this? God, why did you bring me to this? And I think anytime you are dealing with something like that, there's always that number one question as to why. So I say right now, my why is because I can no longer hide in the background. It is time for me to be in the forefront of what it is that I've been called to do. Um, as I said earlier, my stroke was a turning point for me. And in the beginning, I was very emotional because I did not know um, how I was going to survive that, because prognosis was I had a stroke. I was diagnosed with a brain aneurysm and also a condition called Chiari malformation that I had never in my life heard of. And I didn't even know how to actually pronounce it. It has taken me a few years to really get this name down pat because it's not something that you hear often. And what Chiari malformation is a serious neurological condition, and there are four types of Chiari malformation. Mine is not the most severe. It is Chiari type 1. And it's basically where the cerebellum basically presses down on the back of the spinal cord, and it causes really bad headaches and muscle weakness, uh, numbness and tingling in the extremities, balance issues. It affects the voice sometimes. The headaches are usually the worst thing for most Chiari patients because um, it's worse than a typical migraine because there's also a burning sensation that goes along with the pain. And if you know anything about how the brain operates, the cerebellum is the part of the brain that controls really most of your bodily functions and things of that nature. Looks like my guest has finally made it back. Hey, just up here rambling, but also speaking on situations. But life is going to throw us a curveball, and so you have to be able to move when it throws you that curveball. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Denicia Harper. And as I was telling them, I gave a brief introduction about who you are and what you do, and how we're going to be talking about how to love your authentic self. So, you can give them another brief introduction of yourself, and then we'll go on into the conversation.
Thank you.
You,
I hopefully this one sticks.
I hope.
Oh my goodness. I was like, oh no, not again.
Listen,
Yeah.
and I gave them a background, and I was like, I'm not even sure if this is her time to be here, but I do know and understand that that something that you have to say is very, very important, because the enemy would not be trying to censor you if it wasn't important of what you needed to say. Because anytime I feel like there's a distraction or something that leads you astray, it's always the enemy that's trying to get the credit to silence the voice within you. So
Mhm.
something that you are needing to say tonight for someone to hear, the devil does not want them to hear, but we gonna get it done either way.
Yeah, let's do it. Like,
Yes.
yeah, like, I mean, I'll make it very brief since I know we're well into the time, but, yeah, like, I am a doctor of Eastern medicine and holistic well-being consultant, as well as a medical intuitive. I like to say it's that I tend to understand people and connect situations and, themselves as far as their relationships with themselves and with others through what shows up in the body. So that, like what people might, call symptoms, I actually refer to them as signals, just really informing us about a lot of aspects of ourselves, in our journey. And then also, like what is it that we're really wanting to do? Who is it that we're really desiring to be? And I have seen that where it's like, yeah, what might seem like it's this menstrual issue, which it is, there's also a component of who you are at your core and your authentic expression, and whether or not that's actually coming through, or the quality of it. And so it's like I love just reading the body in that way, and witnessing people, in their journeys and seeing, like their attempts at being whole, their attempts at being feeling whole and complete. And for those who don't know, that the root meaning of perfect is actually whole and complete. So that is why I do believe that we really are perfect beings. And it's really more of a journey of how and seeing that we are. I When people tend to think that they aren't, that's to me making way for things to just kind of fill gaps because you don't believe it, but
Right.
your soul knows that you're whole. And so
Mhm.
and it's desiring to fill that. And so it's like, with what are you filling it with? And
True.
you know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
how does that make you open and susceptible to what others are saying that they're going to push on you, because it's really that really underlying core of, I just want to be who I am and I want to express this. And so I believe that it starts with us. Like, even if it's this journey of like, oh, is it really that am I really that perfect? And is it came to me actually, when I was in, meditation and praying about it, and that whole notion of perfect came in, and I was just like, what? Because I had that whole same thought too. Like, well, nobody's perfect. And I was like, I'm gonna need you to think about that. Like, I really need you to explore this. And it's shown me the potential in people where they don't see it. I see it. And it's more of like, how can I now I ask myself, how can I speak that into existence for them?
Yeah.
You, so, and it's just that my way or my lens is through what shows up in the physical body, and seeing how that's delivering messages for them.
Well, that's a good way to look at it. I think for most people, we do tend to see more of our imperfections before we see the perfection, parts of ourselves. For me, I can say that after having my stroke, I thought that, I was broken in a sense
Mhm,
of the wholeness that I once knew. I have to rebuild this part of me because I have to learn how to walk again. And
mhm,
it's like, okay. And then when I had a major flare up again a few years later, I had to learn how to walk. And then I had to learn how to talk again. So it was like, okay, I am not the version of this of the person I once knew. I'm now a new version, and I've had to learn to embrace the new version of myself where the things that I had lost I now regain, but the new version is actually, in my opinion, better than the old version in a sense, because that old version was like very people pleasing in a sense because I didn't want to offend anyone. But after having that stroke, it was like, okay, look here. You didn't care about hurting my feelings. You didn't care about the things that you were saying to me that were hurtful. So now I'm in a space to where I'm not giving you the opportunity to be hurtful and not stand up for myself. So
Mm.
I'm okay with setting those boundaries, okay with moving what I need to remove and replacing with what feels good and comfortable for me. And that hasn't been easy, but it's been a blessing and it's been well worth it.
Oh, yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that. I'm just learning this history of yours. But
Yes.
it's beautiful, and, like, if I may point out something was that is something that not just listening to you and your journey, but I hear it
Mhm.
with other people as well, right? Like,
Mhm.
where sometimes I think that like, we're going after the past,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
When sometimes I'm like, "This actually can be an invitation to creating something different."
Mhm.
Or a co-creation, if you will, for those that believe in God, universe, or higher being,
Mhm.
where it's like, yeah, those days of just going along, we didn't
Mhm.
realize how passive we really were
Right.
until there was something that comes into that conscious awareness, and it might be something in the form of a
Mhm.
stroke, right? Like, or some other physical condition, and
Yeah.
that gets you to that point of like, "Hmm, now I really have to sit with this and
Yes.
explore, like, what
Yes.
has been going on in my life?" Like, and then, yeah, you get to that point of, "Why am I trying to go back to that?" Like, and it's very funny to watch when people get to that realization where I'm asking them, like, "Why?" Especially, like, moms that, they would go through pregnancy and birth, and then it's this whole social, like, snapping back, and it's like, to me, you you're missing the actual transition, like, the transition and evolution for you and your being because you're focusing on the past, whereas, like, right now, it's like, oh, total invitation to a whole
Yeah.
'nother version of you that you can consciously create right now, and
Mhm.
you're asked, like, "What is it that you're really desiring? What
Yeah.
what really is it?" And, like, people pleasing, boundaries, burnout, like, all of that stuff becomes very apparent,
Yeah.
becomes very, very, very apparent. And I think what happens is when we're in those vulnerable states, like those physically vulnerable states, is it's so much clarity that comes, and I think, like, we're also processing that clarity because we may now see something that was there the whole time and we just didn't wanna see it.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that I realized for myself is that having to sit in this space because I was unable to move, I was unable to get around, and all I had was myself and God. And it was like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing in these moments? And am I a bad person? Like, what did I do to deserve this? Like, you go through all of those questions, you go through all of those emotions, and you try to figure out what were you doing that led to this. And then it's like, okay, yeah, I know I wasn't always a great person, but I felt like what I was doing in that moment was necessary. And learning to be okay, to being the villain in somebody's story, and the experience that we had was necessary, but it was also to push me out of comfortable spaces into spaces where I was actually supposed to grow and build and learn more about myself. And in those moments, I learned the resilience of what I was dealing with wasn't the end, but it was a way of transforming. And since then, it's been like transformation is one of my big things. That's why I love butterflies, because I look at, yeah.
I saw them in my head as you were talking.
Yes. And so I look at butterflies because of what they start out as the caterpillar, and then they go into the cocoon. And once they're in that cocoon, they're in a whole bunch of mess, which is what life ultimately is. You're going to get in some sticky situations, but if you actually go through what you have to go through, you come out on top. And when
Yeah,
you come out on top, you have this beautiful transformation that happens on the inside. Now, the other thing is that butterflies don't actually get to look at their own wings, but the people around them get to see and experience that. And so looking at what butterflies represent, it's the transformation, it's the rebirth, it's all of those things. And we are forever changing, if we desire to look at ourselves and to look at the growth, and to not look at situations as this was meant to break me. No, this was meant to build you into who you were destined to be all along. You
yeah,
can decide if you want to stay there, but if you choose to stay there, then you're missing out on the greatest version of yourself.
yeah, and another thing with them too is in that whole soup, like, you actually realize that even as the caterpillar, they actually contained everything for that transformation within.
Mhm. Yes.
They actually contain it within, and that's the other thing, like, that's the other aspect of this, right? Is
Yeah.
that where it is, and this is why I say that you're whole, this is just now is a journey of realizing this wholeness of you, because
Mhm.
you are seeing if you're believing that you're broken and disconnected and always in need of repair and all of this stuff, it really does make that room. Like it to me, it's disempowering
Yeah.
because that sets you up to be plugging yourself into other things and other people that are outside of you, for that transformation when really it's within. Just like I said with that caterpillar, they have everything. And then at the same time, it's this like certain enzymes and certain biochemicals are actually turned on and off at certain phases. They just know they trust the evolution because they're gonna have to it melts, right? And then at the same time too, they know that as much as it is that they might want help, they if someone were to try to help them get out of that chrysalis, they will die.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, it's like it's this innate knowing, right? They know
Yeah.
where to like, where they wanna, like, form their chrysalis. They know where to go, right? And then they trust that what happens inside is what's supposed to happen inside, and then all of that melts, dissolves, and something else just gets created.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's us, and it's not to say, like, it's this thing, like, where I feel like sometimes we are trying to it's like sometimes we're trying to, like, be so individual, right?
Yes.
And but it's like there's actually a paradox here because it's this you're one, and at the same time, you're a reflection of the whole, like, the connective of what I call it, and then but it's through you being you that you're actually being your purpose to the connective. So, like, even then when people are they're saying, like, they're trying to discover their purpose and all of that jazz, I start looking at, well, where are you you? Because if you as you, right? And it'll come with such ease when you're
Yeah.
you. It's like magically, all of a sudden it's like, I just know how to do this, or like these people just come in front of me and and it's like, oh, that's because that's your divine assignment.
Hmm.
And when that is it, then that will come. And then will there be some bumps, speed bumps? Yeah. Will there be some trials? Yeah. And at the same time, just like what you pointed out, right? Like it's that time where there's some version that needs to also be birthed. And that means that we might have to, the chrysalis might have to be built, and then that dissolution is going to have to happen. And it's like dissolution possibly of the physical sense, but then dissolution of beliefs and thoughts as well, to and it to make way for what is now coming true for you, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, how, to me it becomes, how do you support someone in that?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, how would you actually support someone going through and recognizing within themselves where they are in their, I guess you could say, their transformative stage, because that is what it is. But I don't think we recognize that when we are, I guess you could say, when we're not being entertained by the things that used to entertain us, or the things and the spaces that we used to, yeah.
It's
So,
big sign. You start, to me, like, I noticed that my face did a micro expression, like, but it's like a big micro expression. It's because to me, like, I feel it in, viscerally, so, like, I feel it in my body. So it's like,
mhm,
it is an irritant. Like,
mhm,
you will find yourself so irritated
yeah.
and annoyed, and just you start, if even if it doesn't come out, like,
And
you
listen, my
might
face
really
will do that. And I'm like, and I get so much, people will constantly say, fix your face. And I'm like, I didn't even know my face was doing something. My face has its own language, and I try to keep her under control, but she has her own personality. She has her own thing that she wants to do. And it's like, I didn't know, like my sons tell me all the time, I didn't need a public speaking class. I need a facial correction class, because it's always speaking out of turn, and I'm trying to work on that, but it never works. And so I think when I have realized for myself when I've outgrown spaces and people, because my face will do something and they're like, why are you looking at them like that? And I'm like, I didn't even know I was doing that.
yeah.
But I did, and obviously I don't care for them. So let me just go on this way, or let them be over there. And
Yeah.
I
It's
have
like a
realized that,
resonance,
yes. And
and
I'm
if
like,
you don't, yeah, like, if you, it's like, it's so funny, because I mean, really, at some point, so there are some people in some camps that, talk, they wanna say, like, "Oh, be high vibe," right? All the
mhm,
time, "Good vibes, da, da, da." And I caution people in that, and and
mhm,
and the reason why is because, um, it's a judgment,
mhm,
and it's a judgment of, like, a good or bad, right? And the
mhm,
thing is that I don't think that it's a good or bad, because what happens is I think that people don't understand, like, the frequencies of our body, like, different areas of our body. So, like, remember, my background's also in Eastern medicine, so, um, there are hertz that at different acupuncture points are measured, right? That match these sound frequencies. And so it's like when people actually look at sound and then they start understanding like amplitudes and vibrations and frequencies and all of that. So when people sit there and say, not to be low vibe, right? I'm like, you're denying aspects of yourself. because if you're speaking in hertz, there are parts of us that literally will have a resonance that is at a lower hertz numerically, right? And then some that are higher. And the thing is that we actually need all of them. And so so when I think that, like, when we're evolving, and then let's just say that we do come into a scenario or a situation where it's like, "Dang, I used to enjoy that," or, "Dang, I used to enjoy them." And then it becomes so in your conscious awareness that, "Okay, so for right now, this is not ringing true for where I'm at presently." And so, hmm there might need to be some space created, like, right? Or that means that there's something else that I'm resonating with. And I think, like, when you're aware of that and you act on that, but sometimes this is where the boundaries and people pleasing and stuff like that can come into play, because that will simultaneously activate. Because next thing you know, is for some, it's like, oh, but their family. Oh, but I grew up with them. I've known them for 7, 8, 10, 12 years, right? Like, we'll start justifying to maintain that type of contact. And but meanwhile, that whole face that like that was it may come out facially, but like it's actually also like your nervous system, so it's signaling, it's telling you something, right? Like, mm, and so if you deny that and you wanna just go ahead and continue, more than likely, there'll be another way it'll express itself, you
And
know?
it usually does. And that's one thing. Since, like I said, having the stroke and being diagnosed with Chiari malformation, it's one of those things that I really and truly do pay more attention to the signals that my body is giving me. Um, I am still very stubborn and hard headed when it comes to certain things, so I will be completely honest about that. But because number one, I don't like to go to the doctor because it's just irritating because they never fully listen to the issue of what I'm actually telling them is wrong. Yeah.
Well, that is just went through that experience and witnessed it today, and
Hmm.
I I just wanted to invite him to a class on like like, of listening and understanding that, your response right now, dude, is literally defensive. So that's telling
Hmm.
me actually more about you
Than it
than
actually
it
is
is.
me. Yes. And
Yeah,
that's
and
one thing, like, I'm so big on advocating for yourself when it comes to what you feel. And one thing me and my doctor always have this argument about is if I'm telling you something in me does not feel right, it feels off. I need you to hear me because I've been in this body longer than you've been in what you're doing. So therefore, I have a little bit more knowledge about what does not feel right. And just because you have these numbers over here in this chart that you've been reading does not actually line up with the physical that I am feeling. And I'm telling you that this is what I'm going through. Like, prime example, I have Chiari malformation. My doctor had no idea how to treat it because, number one, he's a primary care provider. This is a neurological issue. And so, me telling him, okay, yes, my blood pressure is elevated. Number one, you did not give me an opportunity to actually sit in the room first. You picked me up, you basically brought me from the waiting area to back here and immediately took my blood pressure the instant I sat down. That is the wrong way to check my blood pressure. You have to give my body a chance to actually settle in the room because rising blood pressure, my blood pressure is going to rise from seated position to a walking position to now a resting position again. So therefore, it's going to read high. Also, it's going to be high if I am in pain. If I am telling you I am in pain, my blood pressure is going to be elevated. So give me a few minutes and let me sit, and it will be normal. Never wanted to listen, never had any clue that I didn't know what I was talking about until a colleague of his was diagnosed with the same condition. Now, his colleague was this, I am not. So I also told him that having this condition, they recommend a decompression brain surgery. That's great. However, it is beneficial more for people who are under the age of 25. His colleague was in her mid 50s or something like that. And I said, okay, that's great. That's wonderful. However, has she had a second opinion? Because if they're recommending brain surgery, that definitely is not the way to go, because the outcome, even though all of the statistics that you guys are reading states that she may be okay, she will have a 6 week recovery time, maybe even longer. However, that does not guarantee. This is just paper information, but take it from somebody who deals with this condition, who's done a lot of research as well, who's actually talked to people who have had this surgery, and they're all over the age of 25. There have been a few who have made it by the grace of God that have actually been at the threshold of 25 and don't have any symptoms, but most of them are under the age of 25 who literally had no symptoms. But after 25, your brain is fully developed. You're not doing any more, whatever. Well, his colleague had the surgery. She ended up losing her vision in one eye. She was no longer able to work anymore. And he was just trying to convince me beforehand that she was going to be back to work. It was going to be no problems. I said, yeah, that sounds good. Even the second opinion she got, they all were on the same page. I said, however, that is not the case usually. I said, but I wish her and you guys all the best, but I guarantee you this is not going to be the outcome. So when I went back for my follow up appointment, I asked. He said, yeah, she's not doing too well. Didn't think so. But it's one of those things where they don't tend to listen because you don't look like what their storybook is telling them. The medical journals and all of that, that it doesn't look like, and it doesn't fit in the stereotype, because number one, he's constantly telling me that I am overweight, that I need to weigh 90 pounds. And I'm like, I have had 3 children. I'm almost 50. That's not likely for me. If I weighed 95 pounds to 105 pounds, I would literally look like a strong crackhead. That is not where I'm trying to go. That is not what I want to look like. So therefore, this is not for me. He's like, well, I'm looking. I said, are you looking at it for a black woman, or are you looking at it for your wife? And he was like, well, you need to see how my wife looks. She's had kids. I said, yeah, your wife is also white. She's not black. There's a whole list of things that are genetically different than what your medical journal says and your wife's genetic makeup. We are two different versions of females. So, therefore, what you have here is not going to fit for me. But it's just one of those things of learning when to listen and when to remove yourself from people who don't listen to you. And so we argue a lot, but ultimately he ends up listening, because I stand fast on what I'm saying. And he's like, you have to do this every time. I said, because most of the time, I said, 9 times out of 10, I'm always right. I said, so it doesn't matter that your book is telling you one thing, it's not doing what it's supposed to do for me, because you guess most of the time. I said, and I can do the same things that you do. I can read the same journals that you've read. However, they don't always work for me. So I have to figure out what works best for me. And when you figure out those things in that space of transitioning, loving yourself, paying attention to what your body is telling you, paying attention when you don't feel comfortable around people and in spaces, because I can't do crowds. I can't I pick up on all of the energies that are around me when I'm in big spaces. And so if I get a sense of this is not a safe space, I have to immediately leave. Um, and people find that weird, but I honestly, as I've gotten older and I've gotten more in tune with myself, I'm okay with removing myself from spaces that I feel the energy shift, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Mhm. Oh, to me, it definitely makes sense. Like, but you don't know that. So that like well, now you do. But yeah, no, that makes sense to me, definitely. And like I'll it's so funny, like you were talking about the 2 reasons that with your blood pressure, and I'm like, well, a third reason is because you anticipate like your body prepares to go into battle every
Mm-hmm.
time. So your blood pressure is gonna reflect that, right? Like
Yeah.
it's going to reflect, here I am again, preparing myself
Mm-hmm.
to go into battle and with
Yeah.
this PCP, right? And
Mm-hmm.
um those are those situations, those are those times where it's like I ask people like, what are you gotta like, is that what you want every single time you go in, or do you want something else? And then if you do, start interviewing, right? Like, and looking
Mm-hmm.
at those other, looking at other options. And I do think that some people don't know actually, like, it's so annoying to me when I hear this, like, oh, this is evidence-based practices. And I'm like, there's also practice-based evidence.
Yes.
And I got that from someone else, like Lindsay Fauntleroy is who I heard it from. She heard it from someone else. So, like,
Okay.
if anybody finds out, like, that's who it came from. But, there is this it's practice-based evidence. That's where a lot of, like, the quote unquote "indigenous medical practices" came from. I mean, it was people literally doing things and then making observations and taking note. That is science. So when people even say that, like they try to use that, and I'm like, what do you think science is? Like, I think all of y'all need to go back to science in 101 because really it comes down to, oh, there's a problem. Oh, I have a hypothesis about this. Let's test it and then let's see what our conclusions are, right? That's what it is. And that's how a lot of these were done. Like they just knew, right? Like, oh, well, this herb is growing right here, and our environment and nature is very smart, very intelligent. And this why I love listening to those who are around animals or like botanists and so sometimes they're in their own silos, but like when I can luckily find like some type of like article or something where they're all talking like, and it's because what's really cool is like what it is that they're seeing. So like they can observe, and this happens like, so I'm in Florida, right?
Okay.
And one of the things that sticks out is especially like our last hurricane seasons have been really out of the ordinary for us, right?
Yeah.
But those who work in nature would they've been seeing the change in behaviors of the animals, of the insects, and whatever would be pollinating slash not pollinating, right? And oftentimes, like, it's the nature's so wise, but you're not where most of us aren't trained to look for that, right? And to see that. And so it's like when we can actually get in those places that we can learn that, you'll pick it up. And like Chinese medicine, a lot of it, if you hear it, it's nature-based languaging, right? Like, so there's fire, there's earth, there's metal, there's heat, it's cold, it's damp. Like a lot of that was describing not just what the environment, nature environment was, but also they're like, we're a reflection of nature. And so, like, you can see that those qualities and those things pop up and within the body, to reflect and then to see like how we're responding to our environment. And so when I hear when people talk about like the evidence-based practices and blah blah blah, and I'm like, yeah, where'd you get that from? And then I'll invite them, you know, Okay, now I want you to dig a little bit deeper because a lot of people don't know that when some of these studies end up, now mind you, this is not me anti-studies. I actually love reading and seeing what they come up with when they do their experiments because I find it all like an experiment. Our lives are a big experiment. We're testing all the time. That's what my whole date yourself model is about. And so, but it's like when you actually go and you understand some of these
Mm,
journals, what gets published may not actually be what was raw data
right.
because a publication would have come back and said, we're not going to publish that. Well, what do we need to change for it to be published? Because they need to be have their name published. And so some like people don't know really what can happen for this information to come out. And then you're asking who funded it? Who
Yeah.
funded that study? And then a lot of conclusion statements are made that are like for statistical evidence, some of those actually only require 10 participants. And
Exactly.
so and then you have to ask, "Hmm, what were the qualities of those participants?" Right?
Exactly.
Where were they? And what
What
type
was
of
their
environment was that?
situational? Yes. What
Precisely.
were all of these factors?
Yes.
When I
Yeah.
ask those questions, they're like, well, what do you mean by that? No, there's circumstances, there's environmental factors that play into these people. So, where did you get this information? How were the people in the studies actually equipped to be a participant in the study? Like, what were their like? And when I start asking all those questions, they're like, "Well, what do you mean by all of that? Like, what and I'm like, no, like you want me, like me and my doctor, we got into it about this one particular medication that he wanted me to take. And I was like, I'm not taking it because you're not giving me a reason. You're trying to treat a symptom, but you're not trying to find the cause. So I'm not taking the medication until we find the cause. Like if I wanted to take my car in to get an oil change, but you're telling me I have a flat tire. That has nothing to do with the reason I came in. Like, I need you to find the reason why I'm here, not to to cause another symptom. Like, and he's like, why do you always do this? I'm like, because there are multiple reasons why this symptom started. I need the cause because I don't want to have to deal with this again. So if we can find the cause, we can eliminate the symptom. Like it's just that simple, but you're making it complicated. But now you want me to be the complicated version of what it is that you're talking about. No, I'm not complicated. I just want the cause. Like
Yeah.
find the cause.
And then what happens is the next thing you know, it's in your chart that you're a non-compliant patient or
Yeah.
like you're a difficult patient. And then that paints a whole picture of you to someone else down the line or
Yep.
insurance
And it
companies or
has.
whoever. And then it becomes so it's like it's a very
And it definitely
yeah.
did happen that way. And then when I got to the specialist, it was funny because he had already basically deemed me as being crazy, that I didn't know what I was
Yeah.
talking about. And I had to give him a few choice words as well and basically say, do your job, find the cause. And then when I went back for my results after he did the testing, he was like, I have to apologize to you because you were actually right. There is a cause for you to be feeling this way. I said, yeah. I said, and had you listened to me the first time versus listening to somebody who was not listening to me, you would
Mhm.
not be apologizing now. I said, so I want you to take this as a lesson to listen to your patient because your patient deals with their body every single day. They live in that space. You don't. So it's up to you to actually do what you have taken this oath to do, which is number one, listen to your patient, listen to what they're telling you, and then try to help find a solution to the problem, which is meaning finding the cause that brought them to you in the first place. I
Yeah.
said, so next time you deal with a patient that comes in with a issue, you won't have to apologize for not listening.
Yeah. I think too what I've found is like um there it's like a space where it's not acceptable to say, "I don't know."
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so then instead, you learn practices of deflection,
Yeah.
denial, and gaslighting.
Yeah.
And really all you have to do is just say, "You know, I actually don't know. Let me figure something out. Let me do some research, number 1, or 2, let me refer you." Right? Like,
Yes.
and so it's like, to me, I think you'll go very, very far, and
Yes.
it's with people, like, in general, because that person that's in front of you, like you said, they know what's going on, right? Like, and, that's I remember one time I did a consult with someone and, like, she was thinking about whether or not she was gonna, like, move forward with me with the, treatment plan and everything, and
Mhm.
literally at the end of the consult, she was just like, "I just really actually needed to know that I wasn't crazy." And I was like, "Dang it, should have charged for this." But, but really, like, but it spoke volumes because she had actually spoken with several people, and I was, like, sitting there like, "No, I understand what you're saying, actually." And, like, yeah, 'cause my brain and background, and the way things are connected, I was just like, "No, that all actually makes sense, like, and what's going on." So, yeah, this would be my approach to that, you know, but for her, that was validating enough, and that was healing enough, and so I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then, that day was it was an illumination point for me, in my practice because it also let me, because you have to we have to remember that we were trained to look for issues, right? That's our thing. It's like we're trained to look for it. And the next thing though, and this could be more like personal because it's just me and the way that I think. I'm also like solutions. Like, all right, all right, cool. We see that this is an issue, this is a problem, but like, what's our next step, right? And so, like, that's me, like in a lot of ways. And over time, though, I've had to um put a pause. Like, I'll have to pause myself, and then like zoom out some, and then be like, okay, is this what they're actually wanting?
Mhm.
Right? Like in with personal relationships, but and then also like professional relationships.
Mhm.
Um, and at the same time, just taking that step and realizing that healing can come in several ways. And speaking with her that day was one of those. It didn't take no needles, it didn't take herbs, it didn't take supplements. It was literally just speaking with her and having that space for her to actually just share what was going on, and then to reflect that, and then also to connect it for her and to shift the way that she was even seeing herself. And it was that like moment when I realized, yeah, the versions of healing are not, it's not going to be from me, right?
Right.
And it's like you get in that place where it's like, okay. And that's why I tend to say, like, I'm partnering with you. And actually, we're co choosing if we're going to come together in this relationship dynamic and then go forward. Right. Um, and that's one of the things I was thinking about today was like, I never resonated with being a healer. Um, but I have resonated with identifying what we could put in place for you, the healing to occur within you on your own, right? Like, and that's why I gravitated towards Eastern medicine, because at the base of it, it's about seeing what's there. How is it that they've been interacting in their lives? What's playing a role and to the presentation of what's now? And then seeing, oh, if we put a needle here, but even if it's not a needle, it could be acupressure, right? Like it could be body work, it could be an herb. If we do that, we give the whole person what it is that they need, And then the functions, the innate functions just happen, and it's just like, oh, like, to me, that's magic, right? That's so magical. Because you know, we know what we are to do. Like, the body just knows. It has a wisdom all on its own. And so, like, when there are those moments that we're feeling something, we're sensing something, and it's like, oh, this pain, oh my goodness, what is happening? What is happening? You just want to have those moments of like, I just want it to stop. But then like, we do have those moments, and I get it. And then at the same time, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna let it speak. I'm gonna let it speak. Go ahead, say what you got to say, like, and then like, all right, now what is it with this? Why is it present right now? Why is it present in this quality and shit? And is it sharp? Like, is it dull? But why is it here in this place? Why isn't it over here? Why does the heat make it better? Why does the cold make it better? Why does me sitting down make it better? Why does that, like, so you sit there and start exploring it from this way. And then it's like, oh, you start getting answers, right? And it's like, really, it's that. Now, then some of those answers are actually, to me, they're more difficult
Yeah, they are. And
to actually implement, right? Like,
yeah,
like you even said it, right? The whole people
yeah,
pleasing, realizing like what you were doing, those behaviors, and you're like, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it isn't. That to me, that's why I say it's the relationships with ourselves and our relationship with others. And it's navigating all of that really more so, that I feel like is what we're here. That's what we're here to do. And how can
um,
we equip ourselves to do that?
how can anybody who's wanting to learn more about what you do, how can they contact you?
Oh, you know what? So the space that I call it, it's called the perfect playground. So yeah, I am mostly active on Threads. So
Okay.
it's the perfect playground.
Okay.
Um, and then also just the perfectplayground.com. And
Okay.
yeah, I got the spaces opening up, for conversations like this, and then people to come in with whatever's popping up for them, and just let me jam with them, asking them questions and seeing what's coming up for them. So yeah, this is the 28th, so August 31st it's opening. And yeah, just come on out and then come play. Let's see what's going on with you. And sometimes it's just conversation, like I said. Sometimes it's more than that, but the whole point to me is just reframing that relationship with yourself and with
Yeah.
your body, and seeing that there's so much wisdom and insight. And I just love seeing everyone's perfect, authentic selves coming out when they're in this whole journey.
Well, I thank you for that because a lot of us are still struggling with loving our authentic self and finding our true identity. But this has been a very, very good conversation. We finally were able to actually get through and have the conversation because it was like,
I know.
but it was necessary. And that's what I mean because we were determined to make this happen and somebody needed what you said today and I'm sure they're going to be reaching out. I would definitely love to have you back on the show, so that we can continue this conversation of loving our authentic selves and paying attention to what the body is telling us even when we try to ignore it. Those signals will always come back. um, so
I will.
thank you for being here. And we definitely will be doing a part two of this conversation. We'll have to get together to figure out what your schedule is.
Yay.
But we are right at our time, for our show tonight. Um, but I thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to talking to you again. And before I leave, you guys know that I cannot go without saying this, and that is stay out of God's business. The only thing He needs you to do is be obedient to what He's called you to do. And when you always do that, you'll always be on the purpose and the plan that God has for you. So I love you guys, and thank you for being with me tonight. Good night. We're good. So I don't know where she is, but we are good and we are off. So I'm gonna send you a message, and so we'll be good. Good night.